Welcome to Xbox Corner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at To Yomi on the Xbox Series X. The latest Devolver Digital release. They are known for some of the most creative releases of recent memory, but can this one continue that trend? Well, hit subscribe, join us here on Xbox Corner for reviews, deals, Game Pass breakdowns and lists weekly, and let's get started. To Yomi then is influenced by filmmaker and legend Akira Kurosawa, telling the story here though of a young samurai. You'll open the game in your younger years, training with your master. Quickly into the experience though, he is slain and now you vow to protect his daughter, your loved ones and the village around you. Now this world around you in the story, it's incredibly well realised with so much thought in its details that I do feel it's worth mentioning as part of the story because it just feels absolutely true to life and that adds for sure credibility. From here though in the story, expect to meet the main nemesis, that is Kagero, and not only will you be battling through life in this one, but in death as well for a unique spin at the latter half of the game. The problem though, the story, it has this really strong opening, immediately it will grab your attention, but I feel it struggled to really evolve much beyond that point, and I did find my attention waning. There's a few choices throughout, but mostly it feels like a whole lot of set pieces, and it doesn't invest enough in its ongoing character development. Without that development though, I felt I lacked any true connection to the characters around me, and it absolutely would have benefited from this. It would have built tension and added a little more value behind my actions, even if the set pieces, they are often amazing. To close out story then, it packs multiple endings, 3 in total, but do be warned, there is no chapter select at present. You will need to face the entire game 3 times. Gameplay here then can be described as a combination of 2D and 2.5D as it transitions between locking you to just left and right movement and then opening up to give you more freedom. The gameplay can be summed up as sword-based battles and minor exploration. While it is mostly linear as well, putting a focus on that story, it will occasionally present a split path for you to explore. Sometimes these are simply hidden locations with collectibles that are baked into the game. Others, they may present you with an alternate route, think a way to bypass a group of enemies. Occasionally you'll be climbing, pushing as well, but this is all automatic by simply walking towards the object. There's even some puzzles towards the end of the game. I was, however, disappointed with those puzzles, honestly. It's just the same thing, the same idea 4 or 5 times, and given the game only runs around 3 to 4 hours, I think they definitely could have, mixed it up and maybe got a bit more creative. What most of you will be coming here for though is that combat. It's really a case of moving from location to location and then facing off against another slew of enemies. The variety in the enemies, that is nice as well, from those that wield swords like you or maybe archers, even demon-like enemies in the mid-game as you face off against what I can only describe as a hell-like location. Alongside your sword as well, though, you'll even have 3 ranged weapons to leverage. These do not regenerate either, you'll actually need to find ammo with your exploration throughout the environment. It maxes out at 3 pieces per each. The core of the combat though, that is the sword play, and honestly it is disappointing unfortunately. It's essentially a light attack, heavy attack, as well as a block which doubles as a parry should you get the timing just right. The problem is though, it's, if anything, clunky. It looks smooth, but it doesn't feel that way. Even as it introduces combos as well, it never quite manages to overcome that feeling, and often I found the swordplay would devolve into me either stun blocking my foe or actually vice versa, getting caught in that trap and ending up dying. Now fortunately, the game has multiple checkpoints. These are little kind of statues that you need to interact with that will save your location. I also then, with the combat, noted on a number of occasions, the parry against specific enemy types, it feels just slightly off. The combat just needed more evolution throughout the experience, and it definitely would have benefited from some fine tuning as well. Another issue though, this one is easier to forgive, The cinematic camera angles, they are a thing of beauty. It's often a fixed angle, but they're going to be moving and transitioning alongside you. But when it changes, it can be such a dramatic shift, you'll actually lose your placement, and it can trip up the controls as well as we kind of hunt on screen for our lead. Wrapping up gameplay then, expect to find multiple difficulty options and a journal which tracks your progression with updates that is accessible with a quick push up on the D-pad. Overall though, for that gameplay portion of this one, I do think there's, I guess you can see the potential in here, but there's so many areas where it definitely kind of, falls short. Graphically then, To Yomi is stunning as visual style goes. It's one of the most striking I've seen in some time, presented in black and white with a number of filters to give it that almost movie-like quality. But the locations, I can't name a game recently that can match this, from your small home to the more surreal, to even all-out war. It is something special, and if one thing will keep you coming back here, it's simply to see what location comes next. While the camera caused some issues for me then on a control front then, there's still no question they elevate the visual presentation with smooth pans to elevated positions to those that are a little bit more, I guess, traditional. What I found particularly impressive in its camera work though is the artistic decision to often obscure your views. Look, sure, sometimes I got a hit landed on me because of it, but I do think the decision paid off because it's just so unique, it adds so much personality. Animations then, for the most part, are good as well, although just occasionally they can feel a little unnatural, and that is particularly true when you have multiple enemies on screen at one time. They are typically looking to get in line with you, and they can kind of trip over each other just a little bit. Very few issues though visually, the occasional bit of slow loading textures, that's really about it. Audio then, and another great piece of work. The voice work is all presented here in Japanese with no English dub, and it is of a high quality. Now how good the acting is, I can't obviously say, but to my ear, it sounded fantastic. Throw in then a huge sound field to round it out, environmental effects, weapons, the more mystical effects as well, and yeah, this is how you use sound to truly bring a world to life. Even just things like the screams in the background for help at these locations, it elevates what's occurring around you, and it feels very intentional. If they could have done this alongside a more, I guess, impactful storyline, it could have been something really special. The music then though, it's in keeping with the influences, and it uses a mix of traditional and classical instrumentation. It won't have you obviously, humming along, it's not that sort of soundtrack, but it is cinematic in conjunction with that visual style, and I'd call it overall top quality work. So the final verdict, and I think it's clear, the visual and the audio design, it wowed me with this one, but I hate to say it, it is unfortunately, for me at least, style over substance. The gameplay itself just feels a little underdeveloped, especially that combat system. At its worst even, I'd say it actually feels clunky. The narrative then, it starts off on a strong footing, but it quickly struggles to maintain any sense of intrigue or to really get any investment from the player. That all said though, if you're like me, you love the setting, the samurai style, and maybe that cinematic kind of approach, it's absolutely going to be still worth a look. I can just see where it could have been so much more. To Yomi though today, it's a good 7 out of 10 from me. As a cinematic piece, it's unique and beautiful. I just wish I could say the same about the rest of the package, which feels weirdly somewhat simplistic. Will you be taking a look at To Yomi then, or is this one not for you? Let me know in the comments down below. With that then, hit subscribe, join us here on Xbox Corner for reviews, deals, Game Pass breakdowns and lists weekly, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.